Alright guys, welcome back into another PGA DFS video. We're going live for the Farmers Insurance Open. Let's get it kicked off here. So as always, we're just going to go over, the picks, the value plays, the GPP plays, the FanDuel plays, and the Yahoo plays. Going to do it a little bit differently, change some of the backgrounds a little bit. But it should be a pretty good one. The Farmers Insurance Open event here, I'm pretty excited about. It's the first yellow week we've had in 2020, so it's one that we can attack quite a bit. I actually ended up maxing. All right, guys, let me get that volume back up. We're going to pull that up. Let's see what's going on. It's still that third stream of the year, so give me 1 sec. All right, is the volume working now? Can you guys confirm that or not? Just give me confirmation on that. The chat's slightly delayed on the video, so I'll type it in. So can we get confirmation on that or not? Audio? Sorry, guys, if it's not. All right. Thank you, guys. Sorry about that. Only the third stream of 2020. Sorry about that. So I do want to touch on, I'll just recap what I was trying to say. So Rory and Jon Rahm are the two guys on the top end that, I do want to go out and play. The only problem with this slate is that, you got Tiger Woods, Justin Rose, Hideki, Gary Woodland. Those guys could all go out and win it, and it wouldn't shock us whatsoever. I would want to have more of Rory and Jon Rahm, and they're not priced up too much. Those guys have been top 10 machines pretty much since the U.S. Open, and they've pretty much just been dominating every single start that they've had. Rory and Jon Rahm have both had a top 5 finish here last year. Obviously, Rahm won it 3 years ago. And then Tiger, obviously we know the storyline behind Tiger here at this event. And then Justin Rose, the dude has had 3 straight top 10 finishes here, including a victory last year. So, that's the problem with this slate, is like knowing who to pay up for on the top end. And if you guys were max entering, I would say, just put them all at the same ownership and just kind of hope to get lucky there. But after that, we got Hideki, who Hideki kind of seems like he's going to be chalky. I'm perfectly fine with that. Let's just pray and hope that he doesn't miss the cut. Gary Woodland is by far the best play on the board this week. Let's hope that doesn't, come back to bite us. The dude's checking all the boxes, and he's pretty much the best play on the top tier side that you can pay for that should and could get a top 5 finish. And then we got other players like Sungjae. I'm fine with Sungjae. He should make the cut. That's pretty much what you're paying for. But I do want to talk about fading players because Rickie Fowler, for this being his event, the Farmers Insurance, he's sponsored by them. I don't really get why they chose this venue for, the Farmers Insurance at, with Rickie being their face of their sponsorship. The dude this is not a course for Rickie Fowler. So, I will be fading Rickie this week. That's mostly due to course history. It was 66 last year and then 3 straight missed cuts before that. He is, an okay stat fit, but I'm just fading him. I'd rather play Gary Woodland a little bit cheaper or, Hideki a little bit more. Tony Finau is a fine play. I'm fine with you, if you guys play him at that price point. That's going to be fine with me. Some other plays I do want to touch on before I get into some specific plays are going to be Collin Morikawa. So Collin Morikawa, I actually got a couple of questions on. Pretty much what are my thoughts on him. He's going to be a fine play. He ranks 13th in strokes gained, tee to green. That's perfectly fine with me. We like that. He is priced at 8.9K this week on DraftKings. He's made 16 straight cuts. So pretty much if we're paying under 9K, For a guy that's going to make the cut and probably get a top 30 finish, I am fine with that. I don't want to attack that too much, but if you end up on him as your 6th player in your player pool or your lineup, I'm perfectly fine with that. All right, let's get into some specific plays here real quick. Remember, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. I'm perfectly fine with answering questions. We lost the volume again. All right, so I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on with the volume here. Let me figure it out. So I'm going to go back to the questions here. So we got a question coming in. I don't know if this was answered, and I apologize for the audio issues. These will get cleared up here going forward. I do apologize for that. So we got a question about Hideki Matsuyama or Gary Woodland. It's Hideki and Gary Woodland or Woodland and Morikawa. I would much rather go Hideki and Woodland just because Hideki has the course history and also Morikawa doesn't have the history. Hideki's a little bit more of a stat fit, and I do think that Hideki gives us some more upside as well. So, once you break it down a little bit more, Hideki has a much higher likelihood of making the cut and then also getting a top 10 finish. So I do like that as well. Guys, I do apologize for the audio issues. I'll get that cleared up next week for sure. We got Omar asking a question. I think I remember Omar from some previous videos as well. Let me see. So thoughts on Seb Straka and Hank Lebioda. So me as a DFS player, I typically like to play the most likely outcomes, and both of those guys, we don't really know their most likely outcomes. They're good GPP plays. They're not great. I could see those guys both getting top 20 finishes, but it's not likely that they make the cut. Now, obviously, if those two guys are playing their game, I get the question. If those two guys are playing their games, they can definitely go out and have a top 20 finish. I'm just not sure about their upside that much. Someone like Doc Redman, who grades out a little bit better, I'd much rather go with that. You got John Hutt there as well, who has made 3 straight cuts at this event and also has had some decent recent form as well. I'd much rather go with that. Let's see. Elton, I think I haven't seen you in the chat before. Welcome to the chat. What do you think the odds are that Graham DeLette makes the cut? What? I don't see it. Don't do that. Don't do that whatsoever. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't even know he was in the freaking field. So he obviously didn't pop up whatsoever. What's his price point? I want to pull him up here. Graham DeLette. That's a deep one. I really only play him when it's the RBC Canadian Open. All right, I'm going to go on to the players I want to highlight here real quick. Let's hope the audio issues are solved for that. All right, so I think the audio is good on this one, hopefully. So Matthew Wolff, I do want to touch on it. So Matthew Wolff is one of those plays where if you played him last year, if you guys were in the majority of the players that played him last week, you should go ahead and play him this week. He is a top 30 stat fit. His recent form has been kind of spotty. I don't love this play, but I do think he makes for an okay GPP play. I'm not going to lie, I don't have him in my player pool this week. If I was doing, max entry, 150 lineups, yes. I'm not doing 150 lineups. I'm going to do like 75 lineups this week. I am attacking this one a little bit more aggressively, but he just missed the player pool. So he doesn't have any course history, and that's pretty much why, because I'd rather drop down to Ryan Palmer or Orlando Griffin. But Matthew Wolff is a fine play. We know his game. He's a top 60 in pretty much ball striking, troller driving, and strokes gained off the tee. And I do want to mention, if Matthew Wolff, Scotty Scheffler, and also Cameron Champ, they're all three pretty much the same play. And I'll touch on that real quick here. So let's go on to the next one. All right, so we got Cameron Champ here, who is Cameron Champ, Matthew Wolff, and Scottie Scheffler are essentially the three same plays. Now, Cameron Champ is slightly a better stat fit than both of them overall. His recent form is pretty good as well. So if you're thinking about playing Scottie or Matthew Wolff, I think you should have more ownership to Cameron Champ this week. I don't love any three of those plays because I think there's better plays in their price point range. But if you are playing them, I just want to gauge that Cameron Champ would be the better play. That kind of goes back to last week where a lot of people were on Vaughn Taylor and Matthew Wolff. There was just better plays in their price point range, which, that's kind of my goal, is to get you guys that information. All right, so Joel Dahmen I do want to touch on as well. So Joel Dahmen is just a pretty interesting play overall. So his event history, T9 and a miscut. The dude is pretty much hit or miss each and every week. You can see that by his recent form, T12, miscut, T6, 76, T43, and T9. He's really hit or miss. But this course does set up well for his game. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but Lanto Griffin posted on his Twitter page pretty much saying that the rough was pretty long. If it is long, we do want to target those guys that are a little bit better ball strikers and total drivers. We know that's Joel Dahmen. So as a GPP play, I don't mind it too much. And that's what this live stream is pretty much for, is elaborating a little bit more on those GPP plays. So I don't mind Joel Dahmen too much. If you guys have any more questions too, just feel free to fire them off in the chat. So Nick Watney was one of those plays that after I did my initial highlights of plays, he started to pop for me a little bit. His event history isn't great. His recent form isn't spectacular. 3 out of 4 top 30 finishes. But at his price point, I just don't mind the play whatsoever. I found myself in that price point range quite a bit this week, the pretty much 7.3 range. So I was trying to find some players to play at that price point range. And I kept ending up on Nick Watney. I do like his upside. I do like his stat fit for this. Cameron Tringale is another one that I ended up on. If you're trying to play cash, I would go with Tringale. But for GPP-wise, Watney does make for a decent play overall. All right, so we're going to get into the FanDuel plays. FanDuel is pretty interesting this week, and I will say Yahoo as well, because I always do that as well. Yahoo did a great job with their pricing this week. But on FanDuel here, we got Matt Jones. Fine play. I do like him a lot in GPPs. Russell Knox. So each slate, it does seem like there's a play that we're always forced to play. And it's been Russell Knox pretty much the last 3 weeks. We know he's going to make the cut, and we know he's going to get like a top 40 finish. So it's just tough to avoid that when we can pretty much lock that in. I got you, Smoking Guns. I'll answer that in just a second here. So DJ Trahan, he is going to be the value play that I would want to attack the most on FanDuel, just because he's the most price down value play on FanDuel. So, I do like Matthew Naismith on DraftKings as well, but Trahan on FanDuel is going to be the one I go with the most. Lanto Griffin's price pretty cheap. And then Ryan Palmer I do like quite a bit as well. So that question about Harris English, let me pull him up. So English was a top 10 stat fit this week. His course history is, fine. He had a miscut, an 8th, a 14th, and a 31st finish. So it's been really hit or miss. And that's pretty much been Harris English this whole season so far. He is 16th in strokes gained to the green. He is 7th in that birdie to bogey ratio. So I do think he's going to make the cut. It's not as strong of a likelihood, but if he does make the cut, I do think he could easily go out and get a top 10 finish this week. I really do like him as a GPP play. I'm just not sure we can play him in cash. I do like him quite a bit, though. Hey, thanks, Joshua. To win tourneys this week, need to find value in the 6.8K to 7.3K range. What are you thinking? So Tyler McCumber has popped for me pretty much the last 3 weeks or so. If I were to make like the top 70 player or top 65 players now, to make the cut. He would have been in it pretty much the last 3 weeks. And he probably would be in it this week as well. I don't do that process. It's just kind of just a mental process. I would not play him just because I think there's other value plays in that range. But, he'd probably, I don't have it pulled up right now, but he'd probably rank out as like the 10th best below 7K play that I could go with. I'll tell you right now, I'd rather go with someone like Carlos Ortiz. He does seem pretty popular this week. Pat Perez is really hit or miss. He's had a missed cut, fourth finish, and a missed cut here in the last 4 years. He's a former winner at this course. Pat Perez has made 5 straight cuts. I'm not playing him, but that's just an example. I'd rather go down to Maverick McNeely or Matthew Naismith or DJ Trahan. But I do get the question. If you can get to Tringale or Watney, I'd rather go that, or Matt Jones, I'd rather go that. But going back to your point there, Joshua, it's been insane how much the most optimal lineup has been for leaving salary on the board. Like last week was almost over 5K. The most optimal lineup you could submit last week was like under 5K left on your DK build. I do not think that'll be the case this week. I do think that doing a fair and balanced approach will be the safest route, and then just mixing and matching, some of the top tier plays with the value tier plays is going to be the way to go to maybe take down a GPP. It won't be the most optimal build. Obviously, last week was rare where, really anyone can go out and have a good week just because it was quite easy of a course to score on. This one's not going to be the case that way. All right, touching on the Yahoo plays here. 1 second. So Yahoo did an elite job of pricing. Honestly, it's really frustrating because last week I had a really strong week in Yahoo. Typically, I only do one lineup submitted on Yahoo. I did that last week. It had a really strong finish. Yahoo's typically easier because they always have someone priced at like $20K or $20 or like $25 that shouldn't be priced that low. And this week they did a great job. I mean, there's tough to find value on Yahoo this week. Matthew Naismith, I'm fine with that $20, but he is an actual value play this week. Typically, we don't get that. Like last week, we had Henrik Norlander, who is a value play this week. He's just not as good of a play this week as he was last week. Brandon Steele was a value play last week as well. He is priced up a little bit. Carlos Ortiz was $22 on Yahoo last week. This week he's $25. So Yahoo definitely did a better job of pricing this week. But there is some room to wiggle here. I am glad to see that they're getting better at their pricing. Steele, Norlander, and Champ's not a bad play on Yahoo as well. All right, guys, gonna be wrapped. Man, I just noticed the audio went out on that one too. Gotta get that fixed for next week, and I will get that fixed. Sorry. So, as always, I do like to focus, or I do want to bring back the attention to the membership page. That does help me quite a bit. That does help you guys out quite a bit. It gives you the sample build, the player pool, the cash plays, and the stat model, and also the GPP plays. It is a useful tool for you guys, and I do like to have it because I do think it's the best value in PGA DFS, price point wise, and the overall information that you guys get. I do want to touch on one other thing as well. Betting with 9 to 5. Now, I live in Wisconsin. I cannot place bets in Wisconsin for sports. Essentially, I can play DFS, but I can't place bets. And so I don't really focus my content on that because I like to have the content that I put out there as like a main focus. It's like, I'm geared towards it. Like DFS, I'm fully in that. Betting, I wouldn't be fully in it because I couldn't do it, fully. But I do want to mention it just because if you were to put like $1 on each player in my player pool each week, you'd probably be pretty successful overall. You look at some of the long shots we've had this year: Sebastian Munoz, Lanto Griffin, Tyler Duncan. Those guys have all won a GPP, and we've had those guys in our player pool or mentioned them. So that's just kind of something I wanted to bring up. But if you guys don't have any questions, I'm about to wrap up here in the next minute or so. If you do, fire them off, and I'm glad to or happy to answer them. Start up a listener league. I actually wanted to start up a season-long fantasy golf league that's set up just like fantasy football. I think that'll be my goal for next year, is to actually do that, where you can make waiver moves, you can make trades. Yes, it'd be a long season, it'd be like 36 weeks, but I think it'd be a really fun thing to do. 12 players maybe, and you start like 8 of them each week. And, it'd be really fun to factor in whether, or not to attack majors more, or to attack someone that plays a lot. Would Charles Howell be more valued, or would someone like Brooks Koepka be more valued? I do like that quite a bit. So Dillette, oh, sorry, I don't know if the volume was out on that. I don't even know if he's in the player pool, so that's how much he's not 6K. All right, let me pull him up. No, So if you're looking at someone in the field at like 6K, if it's just 6K, I would say probably change your lineup slightly. But you could go up slightly to John Huh, who is 6.1K. He has made the cut here the last 4 years with the top 25, a T45, a 76, and then an 8th overall finish. So, he's made the cut here the last 4 years, and he's also made the cut the last 3 tournaments he's played in. He's not a good stat fit, but, if you're trying to punt, that'd be the option that I go with. Do I have a lineup with Woods and Woodland? Yeah, so I do. I mentioned earlier, I don't know if the audio was cutting out or not at that point, but I do have quite a few Woods and Woodland lineups. I did almost max enter. I did like 100 or 75 lineups this week. Just attacking a little bit aggressively. But yeah, Woodland's my favorite play. And then, Woods is quite a decent play as well. So Keegan. Keegan was one of the last players that missed out on my player pool this week. I do like the play, and if you're playing him, I'm not going to talk you out of it. The problem I struggled with Keegan this week is that his likelihood to make the cut is not that great. Now, obviously, if he's playing like Keegan, he's going to have a good week this week. He does have fine event history here. He's a fine stat fit, so I definitely get the play if you're going with him. I don't like that route this week. It's just not as optimal for me. But once again, that I ended up in that 7.3 range quite a bit this week, so I definitely get it. Do you know if Gooch and Griffin... So Griffin is a great GPP play. Taylor Gooch, I think he's going to be chalky. And it's going to be like Vaughn Taylor last week, where I just don't get why he's chalky. And I could be wrong with that, but Gooch is not as good of a GPP play as Lanto Griffin. Lanto Griffin is almost checking every box, where Taylor Gooch is more of a play where you're just trying to find reasons to play him. Whereas, some of the other plays like Lanto Griffin or Brian Palmer, I was trying to find reasons not to play them, and I just couldn't. So Gooch, I get as a play. That's another one of those plays where I wouldn't talk you off of it, but I would much rather go with Griffin. He does make for a great GPP play. If he makes the cut, that means he's playing his game, and that means that he should get a top 20 finish. All right, guys, thanks for all the questions. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Have a good week this week. And, as always, let's keep cashing. Let's have a good week for the Farmers Insurance Open. I will be trying to go live probably around this time most of the time. So good luck to you.